Now.
Yeah, good afternoon, guys. This is Philosophy in Discord, and we're going to be focused on conversation, not debate. So we've got speakers from all over the world, all over California, and we're going to hear and share our opportunities, share our opinions on death. I'm Seth. I grew up in Reading with Steven, and I grew up pretty white, middle class, all that shit. So I don't have a whole lot of experience with poverty, but we've got a bunch of different walks of life, so we're going to see how that goes. We've got Steven and Soren speaking today.
As I've grown older, I've tended to learn to be skeptical of everything I'm taught, and which leads me now to where I've become very centrist on many topics, and yeah, I follow philosophies of utilitarianism and skepticism.
Awesome. What about you, Steven?
Alright, I'm Steven Bartels. I grew up very poor and all over the country. Lived on a military base in Texas. I lived in Fresno and Clovis and Reading. Now I'm a mechanical engineering student at San Francisco State University. Let me change the bio and info here.
Oh, yeah.
Now I'm a mechanical engineering student here at San Francisco University. I'm a huge believer in subjective morality and that nothing is objectively true uniformly. I consider myself a meritocrat above all things, and I'm very heavily an atheist and a physicalist, meaning I don't believe in any supernatural existences.
All right. To tell more about myself, I'm very liberal when it comes to
Yeah. So the question for today is death inherently bad for the deceased or the person subjected to it? So rather than the question of, oh geez, rather than the question of is death bad for society or is death bad for those around you, we're focusing on is death bad for you.
All right, Steve, you want to start it out?
Yeah, so life to me is one's ability to to dedicate energy to alter the future. So, to me, once you're dead, you no longer have a future, and that sort of means that once you're dead, it doesn't matter. Death isn't a bad thing for you, nor is it exactly a good thing. It's just something that's inevitably going to happen, and we should learn to accept that rather than see it as inherently evil. I believe that it's just the end of all experiences. Life is just the ability to accumulate experiences, and living is the only thing we've ever done. So I think that naturally humans have an aversion to death, and we see it as something to be avoided because of the role nature plays in evolution and passing down genes. Every successful creature has ever had to live to do that. So now we see a direct causal link between humans' fear of death and you know, the evolution that led to it. But I personally think from your perspective, while it's happening, it'll be irrelevant to you. You won't miss your life. You won't miss anything. You won't feel bad. You won't feel good. It'll be just like before you were born. So that's sort of my perspective on it.
Okay. I had an interesting question that came up when I was thinking about this concept. I wanted to know, how can the person dying even know that they're dead? Because you can't be conscious while being unconscious.
I
Like,
don't. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I don't think you do know that you're dead once once you've died, because your brain loses the ability to store memory. So I think that once you're dead, you probably won't even know unless you have some sort of reason to believe before you die that you're going to.
Right, right.
So, from where I'm standing, death is not an inherently bad thing to those subjected to it. It's just a bad thing if you have not completed your authenticities. If you're, from an existentialist perspective, if you have not been yourself your entire life, that's the only time that death is a sad thing. If you have not been representing yourself properly and representing your values in a way that fulfill you, that's when death is a bad thing to you. But if your story is completed, if you've represented yourself properly to the earth since the day you got here, maybe not since the day you got here, but since you self-actualized, you're not going to have a problem with it. Especially when it starts happening, if you have any warning about it.
Right. What do you think, Soren? Any thoughts?
See, the thing is, I believe that life is more than just you putting energy into changing future events and around what you would perceive to use that energy for. I think life is more of the experiences and you going through those to change your perspective through your mind. And in that way, I would say that death is an inherently bad thing for the individual who is dying, because it means that there is an end to growth in their mind. They are no longer able to come up with new ideas, new emotions, and to be able to act in ways that would fulfill their goals and their ambitions.
Well, plus along those lines, it would be the end to basically the most powerful driving force in humans, which is to reproduce.
Exactly, yeah.
So if anything, if nothing else, then it is the death of, it's the loss of the ability to reproduce, which is an ultimate defeat, you know?
Yeah, that in many aspects in nature, that is the one of the only connecting goals that every organism has, is that it wants to reproduce and continue in that way, and death is the stopping point of that. You are no longer able to do that.
Okay. I have a few questions. Do you want me to ask some questions?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Alright, cool. So, I had a few ideas as to life after death. Do you guys think life after death would honestly be more cruel than nothing after death? Because I feel that a vast nothingness, like how it was before I was born, would be more humane. I would honestly prefer it than going to some endless whatever. Who knows?
Soren, do you want to start?
Sure. I don't quite enjoy the idea of a vast nothingness, as you say, because it means that, in a way, it's just as if you never existed. Because to you, if you start out with nothingness and you end with nothingness, that means you essentially lose any idea that anything in between happened. Because you have returned to the nothingness. And in that way, I would say, if there is a life after death, that I would prefer it to be more vast and complex than simply nothingness.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about you, Steven?
So, I personally prefer the idea of dying and returning to the state that I was at before I was born.
Right.
Because, to me, it represents the least cruel option. I no longer have... Who's to say what death is like, or what the afterlife is like? I don't know because I've never experienced it. I've never been there. But all of the depictions of it display some sort of torture, some form of loss of free will. I mean, with the Christian model, if you die and go to heaven, ultimately you lose your free will because you're no longer allowed to sin, and if you die and go to hell, then you're in eternal torture forever anyway. So, to me, these are indistinguishable. Both are forms of torture because I have to continue to exist. I'd rather just return to the state that I was like before I was born because that's more natural. That's just, to me, that seems the logical conclusion to life. If I went to some other dimension, it would seem almost intolerable. It'd be an entirely different reality. Something that, I mean, it would absolutely be something that I'd never experienced before, admittedly, but I can't imagine it being better than this. Like...
Right.
Can I ask a question for Steve?
Of course.
Steve, so you say like, in the Christian model you gave, if you go to heaven, you are not able to sin, and in that way you don't have entirely free will. Do you believe that we on Earth, as it stands, have free will to begin with?
I think you know the answer to that.
I think we both know the answer to that.
I'm entirely a determinist, so I don't think that we even have free will here on Earth. I think that all of our actions are driven by predetermined factors, that being your experiences and your DNA drive the way that you'll react to problems that occur, like that. So your brain will react to stresses based on your past experiences and your DNA. And I think that that free will is just an illusion for very, very complicated variables that humans can't comprehend. Basically what it is people don't know entirely why they make decisions. They don't know entirely what drives the human process, and because it's so complicated and so hard to understand, we substitute it with this idea of free will, which I think is just an illusion.
So if free will is an illusion to begin with, and you find that heaven is a torture because we would have no free will there, do you believe that life in itself is torture?
No, I don't. Because the idea assuming the Christian model, we do have free will. We have a soul that drives our decision making. Your soul is inherently what you are under the Christian model. So you would have the desire to sin or the past ability to, but be totally unable to. Whereas now, I don't think that we had free will in the first place. Life to me isn't torture, but that might simply be because I'm doing pretty well right now. Life to me isn't torture because I have an ability to affect the future and an ability to make my outcomes better, to make a better life for myself, to achieve hard things, and to gain the respect of the people around me, to make friends, to look into the love of my life's eyes. These are things that matter simply because I think they do. Nothing is inherent here. But under the Christian model, you do inherently have free will. So, what matters is going to heaven at that point. But and once you do, you wouldn't have free will anymore, is my point. I don't prescribe to the Christian model, so I don't believe we have free will, but I don't think that's a bad thing either, because we at least live under the illusion that we do.
So you're saying that in the Christian model, heaven would be cruel because it would take away any illusion of free will.
That is exactly what I'm saying, because
Okay.
in the Bible, when Adam ate from the tree of knowledge, he was exercising his free will to disobey God. And basically, once you get to heaven, there's no doing that. You can't do anything sinful. Even though you've lived a life on earth where you could sin, you would know that you could. Either God would remove your desires, your human desires to sin, which is something inherent to people, as quoted in the Bible, or, so no matter what, you wouldn't have free will.
Okay.
And you would, I believe you would miss it because you would remember that you could on earth.
Mm-hmm. All right. Seems like we're getting a little bit off topic. We're talking about free will, not necessarily the, main question. So I'll bring us back with a question. Give me a second. All right. So I wanted to ask you guys: do you think dying for a cause is ever justifiable? Like, do you think going out, specifically like military, do you think that is a death that is good, inherently good for the person dying?
Soren, you want to start us off?
Sure. Under utilitarian beliefs, that I believe that if that death is going to make lives of more people, if it is going to better off more people than that one person, then I believe it is justified. So long as it's not under forcibly, as long as they aren't forcibly conscripted into the military.
Right.
If they volunteer and they die and that death causes more lives to be better, then I believe that it is inherently a good death.
So what you're saying is that person's free will is more valuable from the utilitarian perspective than the lives of the people they're saving.
Yes.
Agreed. So,
Okay.
I believe that as long as a person is pursuing their authenticities when they die, so if they, I would agree with Soren that as long as they were not conscripted, and it's their own authenticity to want to die for their society, to want to protect it, to possibly kill to protect it, as long as that's their authenticity, as long as that's within them, within their value set, that they value their country's right to exist more than the lives of the people that they're killing or the cause that the war is fought over, then yes, I would say that that is completely justified.
Okay. All right. Jeez. Do you want me to talk? Maybe ask you another question?
Sure, if you have more.
All right, cool. So this one's a little bit more heavy. There are theories that when you die, there's a release of DMT inside your brain, right? So I think it might depend on how you live, or how you lived is how you experience death, because similar to what Stephen was saying, based on the Christian model, you go to heaven or hell. And it might not be that far off that somebody who has lived ingenuinely and has cheated people, killed people, whatever, will face their demons in death by the release of this chemical in their brain. What do you guys think?
I would say that has, in my opinion, it has very little impact on whether or not death is good or bad in that sense, because it's still that moment is only a mere fraction in their mind, when they are dying. Somebody who, has so much more to live for and they die, that small moment where either they get to face their inner demons or they get to, live out righteously in their mind, in
Mhm.
in my in my idea, that is very inconsequential.
Okay.
All
What
right.
about you, Stephen?
So, I think personally that the DMT death theory is a very a very good, well, possibly scientifically accurate one, because it's one where humans judge themselves once they die.
Hmm.
So the idea is that DMT is released into your brain, and the fractions of seconds before you die become seemingly eternities to you,
Right, right.
where you live out whatever afterlife you subconsciously believe you should be in. So if you
Hmm.
live your entire life believing Christianity's true, but you also think that you were a sinner and you deserve to go to hell, that's likely where you end up. And we see that DMT has similar effects, that psychologically, however you feel about yourself will determine the trip. Um, so I think it'd be very cool. I I'm very excited to continue to see scientific research into the DMT death model, and it's one of the afterlives that I'm more hopeful for.
Right. Of all the theories, I wouldn't be too wrong with that,
But in a way, isn't it also like all of the theories are correct in a way, if that's
Right.
how it works out?
If that's the theory,
Because
it's whatever you believe.
in your mind, there is no difference then, because you're on a D trip, you see a law, and a difference between actually seeing a law.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well, but who's to say
The
either one is?
DMT theory is like all of the theories are
It just
correct.
covers all the bases.
Mhm,
But I mean, nobody really knows.
mhm.
So I mean, he can't necessarily discount one theory or another. But I think it's a valid explanation because it's already been proven to exist in the human body, and so it's not unreasonable that the body would release it a lot at death, and that's why that would explain why people who have near-death experiences have these visions of seeing God. Who am I to say that they don't see God? But who knows, right?
Yeah, that would. I feel like that would explain quite a bit.
got any more questions prepared, Seth?
Oh, geez. Let me look. I don't know. I kind of wanted to see where you guys just think about death. Like, what do you personally think happens in the afterlife? I mean, we kind of touched on that, but I mean, like, just based on how you were raised, what do you guys believe happens when we die?
Would you like me to start, Steve?
Yes, begin.
So, in my mind, the afterlife, this is a bit of a weird theory, but in my mind, the afterlife, once you live your life and you die, you kind of sit like in a little chair and you just watch your life over and over again.
Mhm.
And the reason I feel this way is because think about memories. Now, when you
Right.
try to remember something ages ago, it's kind of cloudy, but it's still there,
Yeah.
And I feel that because you haven't lost that memory, that
Mhm.
means you haven't also met you never meet the point where your brain just wipes. Your brain never wipes down because
Right.
it's still all in your brain that you are constantly reliving in this state of the afterlife.
Interesting. I think I heard who's the black neurosurgeon that was going to run for president? It was
Dr. Carson.
Ben Carson.
Right, Ben Carson. I heard I don't know if it was a TED talk, but it was something he was saying where he could perform a small surgery on somebody, and help them to remember like impeccable details from like 10 years ago. Like they could recall the color of the T-shirt of a person they sat next to like 10 years ago, because it's all in there. Your brain just catalogs it differently because you don't necessarily need to recall that information. So it would make sense. It's not unreasonable to think that we have access to all those memories.
Yeah, yeah, and that's in my mind. That's what happens moments before you die. Is your brain just remembers everything.
Okay.
Yeah, so my personal understanding of it is that it probably depends on how you die. If your whole brain is shut down faster than you can even comprehend it, I don't think that you get anything. I think that you just cease to exist, and it goes back to being exactly like before you were born.
Right. I didn't necessarily consider that, because if you have a traumatic incident, like if you get your head blown off, there is no ability for you to follow the DMT theory,
Yeah.
or even any of the brain shutting down theories. So like maybe you wouldn't even recall all your memories because you would just suddenly be dead.
Yeah, so if your brain does not even anticipate it, it's very likely that you just go back to the state of non-existence. I think if you have time, your brain might pull some strings, have a few tricks to make the experience less horrible for you.
Right.
Less, because it's in us biologically to be the one thing that we fear the most, So I think that it wouldn't be too far beyond the reach to think that our biology did us a few favors, and in the last moments of helplessness where you can no longer survive, it gives you a small break.
Yeah, I mean our brains are amazing. They release
Yeah, I mean our brains, our bodies like help us in ways that technically evolutionarily would not assist us.
right.
Like just in living they wouldn't assist us, but in death they do.
Mhm.
So that's why I wouldn't be surprised with the DMT theory, or anything like that, where even though it technically doesn't benefit, a living organism,
Mhm.
it just helps in death.
Right. I mean, exactly. Like pain, we release pain fucking blockers. Like when you break your leg or something, and it's, what is it, serotonin? I don't know if it's
Yeah.
serotonin, but it's not unreasonable to think that our brain can do something amazing like release DMT. It already produces it. Why the hell wouldn't we just dump all of it at the last second?
Yeah.
So I don't know. You guys want to just move into
Senseless rambling?
Yeah.
We can do senseless rambling.
All right, I'm down.
Sure.
It doesn't have to be an hour long every time, so.
Okay.
This is a Wednesday show. We can say Wednesday shows are shorter.
Wednesdays
We're inventing the format now, so Wednesday shows
Yeah.
are shorter.
Yeah, we can say whatever we want for like how it goes,
All right, cool.
I am not opposed for stripper Saturdays, where we bring in strippers.
Wait,
line
back up.
them
What?
everywhere. Line them everywhere on the show. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
We don't have strippers.
I'm kidding to my girlfriend.
This show does not have enough
Don't mean
funds to produce Stripper
Yeah,
Saturday.
it doesn't have enough funds every Saturday. Well, no, but I mean, technically we don't have to do it every Saturday, so we can only do it Saturdays where we have the funds to do so.
Right, some of the Saturdays.
We'll see.
Yeah, some Saturdays.
If the show picks up enough ground for us to afford even one Stripper Saturday, I'll be happy.
She could
How
just
much
be
do
in the
strippers even
background.
cost?
I mean, she could be the mediator, and when we go into ramble, she just.
That'd
so
be.
maybe
It's her
it's like
top
a.
off.
It'd
Maybe
be.
it's like a.
Go ahead, Soren.
Maybe it's like we'll find like a really hot philosopher lady to like come
Yes.
up and maybe a guy for our female audience too.
So I guess.
We're diverse here.
Yeah, it would be very, very embarrassing to have to check my stripper into my college dorm with the RAs. I'd be like, this is my friend.
I could probably sneak them in pretty easily.
Yeah, your building is different. Mine doesn't have any other entrances.
Well, that's why it could be a philosopher too.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. She should just be like a professor. I'm here to tutor my
We
student.
could get my philosophy professor to mail strip behind one of us. That'd be pretty.
Seth, that just sounds like a bit of like a sex fantasy, Like, hey, let me get all my hot my hot professor coming in here, you know.
Yeah, right.
I'd be into
Oh,
it.
So I mean,
Jesus.
I had philosophy today. Fun fact. So I prepared a couple philosophy and Discord questions for the
Ooh.
future. I guess we could talk about
Awesome.
Yeah, we could just like quick fire.
yeah, we could
Yeah, you
do
want to
we,
just
and
bring a philosophy question up?
yeah, we might discuss some of these later in the podcast as actual focus questions. But right now, we'll just
Okay.
see how everyone in the call feels about them. What is the purpose of life? What is your life's purpose? If um, if we are a construct of our own purpose, if we construct our own purpose in life, what guidelines should we create for what makes a good life purpose? So what if we do make our own life purposes? Some of them have to be bad, from where you're standing. So what makes a good life purpose and what makes a bad life's purpose?
That's
You,
interesting.
you want to start, Seth?
Sure. We had a conversation last night, like kind of along the lines, because we were talking about, why the hell are we here? And it's kind of just to do whatever you want to do whatever you feel is fulfilling whatever you feel is your purpose, Like if I'm here to fill water bottles the rest of my life and I feel satisfied by filling water bottles every single day of my life, then I should just go fill those water bottles. I don't think there is a determined good or bad life. It's whatever you feel satisfied doing. If in the end, if you die and you're like, I did everything I wanted to do while I was alive, and I didn't have like a day that I regretted doing what I was doing, then that's a good life. It doesn't matter what you did in that life, but I believe that.
I completely agree. It has to do with authenticity and fulfilling what is very basic. What in nature you want to do. What like to your deepest values. You portraying that and acting like the person that you want to be and doing the things that you want to do. Because ultimately, there is no defined how to be a good human. What the only thing that matters is fulfilling your authenticities. And what I think makes good authenticities are traits like cooperation, intelligence, integrity, you know, things that strive to make you a better human to others, that make you more empathetic, that make you contribute more to making the lives of the people around you easier. So,
Door. Yeah, door.
that's just personally what I believe. I think it has a lot to do with you know, I think that good values are ones that make you a more cooperative person, and that life matters if you fulfill your authenticities, which you may or may not be able to determine. Soren?
I think, in my views, human life, humans are societal creatures. So, in that aspect, I feel everybody is born with one way in their genetics that they are able to benefit society the most. And I feel that a lot of the meaning of life comes from finding your way to get to that point. You know, where some are best suited, for leading, and some are best suited for finding and learning information, and some are best for teaching. I think life just comes from everybody slowly starting from the base point of infancy to diversing into these roles to better suit humanity as a whole.
Steven had an idea about that today. We were talking when we were getting lunch. What was that? You were talking about Joe Rogan and how, like, you have to do hard shit to be satisfied?
Yeah, so it's sort of the idea that the reason why people are so sad today, so like clinically depressed, is the fact that you don't have to work to achieve much anymore. Most people don't do things that they consider fulfilling or difficult. If all you do is go work a 9 to 5 at an office and then you eat McDonald's and you don't feel particularly special or good at anything, you don't feel like you do anything difficult, you don't train, you don't have long-term goals, like, how could you not be sad with your life? How could you not feel unfulfilled? You know, and I personally think he's correct. I think that you absolutely do have to challenge yourself to make this life worth living. That's just one of my authenticities, though. Maybe some people are okay just doing, you know, menial labor their entire life.
Right.
I think it depends all like at birth where you are going to find, you know, value in life. Like some people like me, or more happiness in life. Like me personally, I love the idea of, you know, living a life where I I am in the roots of society, where, you know, I'm dealing with all of society, but there are many people who find happiness being disconnected from society, you know?
Soren, you didn't even talk about the fact that you're a young politician in Clovis, California, running for city council.
Oh
That
yeah.
sounds pretty difficult.
I thought I'd bring that up uh, right about now. Yeah.
Tell
Yeah,
us about your platform. Tell us about I mean, I feel like this should have gone in the beginning in the bio and info section. Tell us
Well, I
about
didn't want to I didn't want to like go on, you know, all about it and just take up all that time. You know, surely just solely with that. But I I'm running for city councilman in Clovis, California. I have a platform based around bringing jobs to our city, and the reason, the way I plan to do that is by uh, starting with the younger education levels. You know, I feel our society is lacking in that, in actually teaching children and young adults actually how to get jobs and how to climb levels. Uh, because nowadays education is just all about here's how you get to the bottom level, and now just people just stay at the bottom level. You know, we need to teach people how to start at the bottom level and slowly work their way up. And that's my platform. That's how I believe we can make Clovis a better city.
Okay.
That was pretty good. Uh,
We have a viewer question real quick if you want to hold that thought, Seth.
Ooh,
yeah, of
sure.
course, go
So
for it.
Hannibal Roy Bean asks, so how about a person or persons who are content with simple things in life?
Hmm.
I think that if you're content with simple things in life,
Then you're content with simple things.
yeah, I think I think that you still have long-term goals, you still have authenticities, everything still implies, you know, all of the things I said still apply. You still have aspirations, you still have things that you want to achieve.
Right.
The bar does not have to be high. You don't have to do tremendously difficult
Right.
things.
The bar is relative.
Yeah, you set the bar. You just have to
Exactly.
determine what it is and then achieve it. So you could say
Right.
all I want to do is work at McDonald's, and then once you get there you're like, dope, now I'm at McDonald's, then you set a new bar after that probably.
Right. If your life goal is to become a manager of McDonald's and you become a manager of McDonald's, then you achieve like what you set out to do.
Well,
Yeah, go for it.
I think it's a very good thing for people who are content just staying at a lower level, who don't care to climb.
Because we need people to work at McDonald's.
Yeah, we do need people to work at McDonald's. And if everybody wants to become the manager at McDonald's, what are we better than like all the mini apes who want to be prime ape, you know, in their little ape group, you know? So I think it's very good, and it's a very good thing that that there are many people who are content with just staying at the bottom. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that's almost a requirement, and I applaud those people. Because me personally, I can't do that. That is
Right.
a skill that I do not have.
We need people to advance. We need people to not advance.
Yeah.
So, so I could ask more questions and if nobody has anything else they want to bring up on this topic.
Yeah, go for it.
All right.
Oh wait, I was gonna sorry before
Go ahead.
we go down that rabbit hole. I wanted to ask Soren, as a based on your your platform, as a utilitarian, do you want to educate people in like specific areas that will benefit them better? Because you were talking about taking like an aptitude test or something along those lines, like when you're younger, to see if you have maybe a more creative mindset to engineer. And then you could put that child in like the STEM project or STEM program instead of, focusing them on general education or like English, for example. Is that something that you have thought about?
Yes, I've thought about it, and I would say that that is very beneficial. But I think the main thing is also giving them free choice to not do that.
Right.
So you can because you can tell somebody all they want, you will be the best football player you could possibly be. But if they want to be a soccer player,
Right.
there's only so much you can do.
And that goes along the lines of people being satiated in their lives,
Mm-hmm.
because
So-
then it gets a little Orwellian if you're like, you should be an engineer, and then they make you be an engineer,
Yeah. Like I think you should, say, hey, you're really good at this. You should consider greatly
Right.
doing this. You
Right.
might find the most success. But as we've discussed, there are people who don't care as much about success, as much as the small things that bring them happiness.
You remember all the aptitude tests we had to take in Shide's class?
Yes.
Yeah, he made us take test online before we started that were just general help you through high school, find out what you want to do and what you're good at sort of test. So yeah,
I was just gonna bring up Doctor Strange because he's the best neurosurgeon in the world, or whatever surgeon in the world, and he should be doing surgery, but instead, he's saving the world.
he's doing magic instead.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But under my utilitarian view, I quite appreciate that, because even though
Because no one
might
else
He
can
is
do
saving
magic.
more lives by
He's
protecting the world.
saving more lives by doing that, he is adding to the greater good.
It's true. It's true. That's
Sure, a couple of people with brain injuries don't get saved,
fair.
but hey, he stopped Thanos for a little bit there, kind of
Right,
left a little leg
right.
room. you know. I'm sure there's a ton of movies that we didn't see where he did some other stuff.
Oh, right, of course.
So this is a question that's definitely going to be on the podcast in the future because it's very personal to the speaker. What do you value in life? It could be anything. Example, you could value human life, nature, intelligence, cooperation, happiness, freedom. How do these values affect your actions?
Oh, jeez. I don't know. Soren, you want to start?
Sure. I value greatly society and the idea of protecting our society. I think it would be a great loss for human society to break down in any way, because sure, society is not unique to humans in any way. There are many other animals that are capable of forming their own societies, but human society has been able to rise, due to its more complexity and in some ways simplicity in nature. And in that way, I think it's a very good priority for us to try to sustain that in whatever ways we can.
Mm-hmm.
I
generally agree. I'm sorry, Stephen. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can go next if you don't mind. So what I value, just to show you, is intelligence, the respect of my peers. I value, to a certain extent, I value what my contemporaries think of me, what the people who I consider, equal to me think. Well, not equal to me. I think everyone's equal to me, but what the people I respect think about me, I care, or what I also value is intelligence, charisma, cooperation, fulfilling my authenticities would be doing things that made me feel that way. So, the way that these drives my actions is I want, Soren and Seth to respect me, so I hold myself to a certain intellectual bar. I sort of behave in a way that I think will lead them to do that. Unless it compromises something that I value more, say human life. If someone's like, I will only respect you if you kill this person, then I would start to question whether or not Soren is really someone who deserves that respect.
Yeah, I would generally agree with you, Stephen. I don't know if I had anything to add there. I would also agree on a level with Soren because I don't really love society. I love the concept of society. I love relationships between human beings and the, networks that we create and how that benefits our lives, absolutely. But, what we've created is kind of like a bastardization of that, honestly, because what it is it's people, it's levels of people just fucking over the people below them. And that's kind of true with whatever government that exists. It exists in communism, it exists in capitalism. And it just seems like society is kind of a breeding ground for corruption.
I think that is true, but humans are very unique in our ability to be able to very quickly, sometimes for the worse, but to very quickly be able to change how our society functions.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is one thing that is almost uniquely human. When you look at apes, usually it's, you have top ape, and then all that happens is one of the lower apes becomes top ape. There's very little shift in actually how the society works. But
Right.
in humans, if enough people feel that society is, poor, we have the ability to try and strive for better ways of changing that. And that's why I value it so much and think that we should protect it, because it is such a uniquely precious thing, in my views.
All right.
So that's about all the time we have.
All right, cool. Yeah, thanks for everybody stopping by, watching the podcast. Again, I'm Seth, mediator, and we've got Stephen and Soren speaking here. So have a great night, and if you're watching on YouTube,
Vote for
But
Soren.
Ex-
If you're watching
If-
on YouTube.
If
or
and
on
you
Twitch.
and you live in
And-
Clovis,
and if you
California.
live
if you live in Clovis,
Or
vote
just
for
move, because let's be honest, once I'm running the show, it's gonna be worth moving to.
Exactly. There you go.
Tell us if there's any way we can improve in the comments. Tell us what you thought of the show. Have a
Definitely.
great night.
Yep.